So much.
Perfect.
Take care.
Have a good hour.
See you soon. Boom. We're recording, right?
I think we press record.
Have a good hour.
We've got that on fucking. I don't want to say day.
He's
Right.
not, you're not in the
I'm
mood.
going to press record.
Put the,
We're recording.
put the headphones out of the way.
Have a good hour.
Let me think about it.
That's me.
45. Couldn't just wish someone a good hour.
The nice lady just came up and sorted our sound out, and she said, "Okay." I said, "Have a good hour." Like, I'm gonna see her in an hour's time. Fuck.
You never. Yeah, she would. She's gonna come back. So
And she'd be like, "I had a nice hour."
yeah, it's great. You guys couldn't stop bothering me.
Yeah. We had to call her back because we didn't know we didn't know if it was recording or not, and it probably still isn't, and we're probably going to be sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's all. To be honest, all you need to do is the visual, right? Who listens to podcasts exactly? So let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Quinn Pryor. Mr. Quinn Pryor, and we'll kind of like almost. We decided to kind of freestyle on this and to give value, speak about ourselves, and kind of have it as if there's no mics and just have like a raw conversation.
Yeah.
So how are we doing today?
I'm very well, thank you very much. I've had a good week. Nice sunny Friday. It's the end of the week. Not that makes too much difference when you running your own business, but at the end of the day, it's nice to be out the house. Because I've been working from home, and it's one of those things where it's like, I get to go out the house and I can actually do that on a Friday instead of having to go to work and that sort of stuff. So it's like I'm going through this process of learning and understanding that I can do these things and I'm not secured into a job, which is almost what I'm doing to myself.
Yeah. It's quite easy to get into a trap of like, even though you got flexibility, not taking it.
Exactly.
It's because we both work from home, and it's like kind of, even though you work from home, because you work from home, it comes to 9 p.m. you're still working. And we spoke about on the way here where it's actually probably nice to even get an office in a sense where it's like, right, you're going to get in there, do your thing, you're not taking the office back home, and you kind of separate work and personal. I think that tends to be a big struggle for a lot of people. I know I still struggle with it, and it's like balancing personal and professional, because you kind of find actually when you're, especially in a place where actually this is what you do and you work for yourself, and you find it almost blends together. So you may be on a Friday night with the other half, but then actually still speaking about business and like these ideas that are coming to your mind, and then 10 p.m. at night you're like, actually I can go off and do this right now.
Yeah,
I've caught myself out so many times where it's like you take the laptop to your bed because you're trying to do things and you're like, get away from this, because then it kind of taps into the morning. So
yeah, that's like the last couple of months, like me and Lacey, we've basically been, after 6, 7, we put phones down and reply to clients. Yeah, so that's because we go to bed early and wake up pretty early, and so for yourself, you works pretty late, and that's where you work best, or you feel like you work best. After about 6 o'clock, I'm like, I don't work very well. I can do calls with clients, sales calls are okay at that time, but the best is at 12 and sort of in the morning time if I can.
sick.
But yeah, it's like when I'm sat, having an office space or going to work has always been the way my brain would function best, because I'm there and I can do the tasks when I'm there, and then I can leave. And I'm like, not that I wouldn't do things outside, but it's almost like, right, the harder tasks are done now. I just need to do the bits and pieces that I know I need to do anyway. Whereas when I'm at home, I'm like, I wake up and I sort of just go downstairs, have a bit of breakfast, and I'm like, I should probably do this. And then unless I have something specific, like a big task to do, it takes me, my brain to go into hyper focused mode to get into the zone, the flow.
Yeah.
Whereas, and then if I do, Lacey loses me for about 3 days. And I'm like, I'm just...
You walk past her in the kitchen.
Machine. Yeah, I'm an absolute machine. I'm literally like this. I'm a desk.
Cap going.
You're right, yeah. And then that's it. She gets from me for about 3 days. And I'm like, and then I'm done.
Trust me.
And I'm like, okay. I'm done. And I've literally done about 2 weeks worth of work in 3 days. And I'm like, well, I'm going to relax for
an hour.
Yeah. But then I've got an hour, so I could actually edit 2 videos in that. And then it's like, fucking hell.
There's always something to do, isn't there? And I think like, even as like, I think for most people, there's always something to do. And I think actually it's quite interesting, because I think busy is more like up here than it is out there. So your mind's busy, but sometimes actually giving yourself the freedom to be like, actually, I've done what I need to do today, and I can actually not think and do.
Yeah.
So it's busy is more like it up there as opposed to in the reality of doing things.
Exactly that, and it's like I have the daily tasks. Like everyone has their daily tasks to keep the needle moving forward and make sure that everything's good, to make sure the business doesn't just fall to right? Then you've got your pushing the needle forward tasks, so pushing the business forward tasks, whatever they might be. Like for us, it might be building a lead magnet, or doing extra lead gen, or something that is out of the norm that you don't normally do. But when you don't have those pressing tasks, obviously you can always do something like that, and that's why some people's businesses grow ridiculously fast, because they're just absolute machines and workaholics, and sometimes I'm like that, sometimes I'm not. Depending on the week. But that's what I have to make sure that I understand myself, and that's what's tough at the moment, is like I'm seeing all these people absolutely nailing it, and I'm not saying I'm not, but at the same time I'm like, I always know I can do better, and I'm very judgmental on myself, and I'm very harsh on myself, and I'm like, if you have 10 minutes there, you could be doing this. And it's like, it will be the death of me, because it's like I can never be satisfied with what I have done. It's always I can always do more. So the other day I worked a whole morning solid, and I was like, right, cool, I've done everything I needed to do today. Now it's just extra, and I made sure I wrote down everything that I'd done that day. I'd done 2 hours lead gen. I'd done all my client check-ins. I'd done all this, and wrote it all down. So I could visually see what I'd done, instead of forgetting what I'd done and thinking, I need to do more. And it's like, you've literally done what you need to do today. You can relax. Obviously, I didn't.
We spoke about that last time. I think it was in Liverpool that time, where it's like, when does it stop? It never does, but you get better at it, isn't it?
Yeah. You get more efficient, and then suddenly, instead of things taking 2 hours, it takes 1 hour, and then you can nail through it. Like my client check-ins used to take me so long, and I used to do this like a very detailed check-in most days. Whereas now it's the detailed check-in is on the Monday, like really in depth, and then obviously I communicate with my clients throughout the week. What they want.
Yeah.
But that now has taken a way less time basically. But it does get to the point, and this is again why and we spoke about this before, I've started to block my days out differently. When I was going to the gym first thing, when I was in Worcester, when I was going to the gym first thing with my mate, we would get there for 6, leave by 7. It was like an hour slot. We used to get in and get out. So I'd get home at about, 7:15, shower, eat, change, start at 8. That was a good routine, because then I've got the whole day. Whereas now, because I don't have to train with my mate who had to train early. I wake up, when my body wakes up, because I'm trying to focus on my sleep and recovery, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm waking up a little bit later, and I'm actually getting a decent amount of sleep. Wake up, get to the gym for 7. Now, because I'm doing more CrossFit plus conditioning, all this sort of stuff, and more technique, it's not a rushed session. I'm taking my time. It takes 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I'm at the gym, get home, 9:30, shower, eat, change, get ready, sit at my desk, and it's like 10:30, 11. I'm like, it's lunchtime. And I'm like, where has this day gone? So and I work very well in the mornings. So if I go to the gym in the morning, I'm sat there with messages from clients thinking I need to do these certain things, so like my check-ins. I feel like I have to do it in the morning, and this is the pressure that I've put on myself. No one else put this pressure on me to do the check-ins in the morning. The clients aren't sitting there at 8 a.m. waiting.
Where's this little rat?
He said he was going to message me. He hasn't. That's what I
self-inflicted pressure.
Yeah, I think that they're
massively
sitting there going like that. Really, they haven't thought once about me.
It's a story you tell yourself, isn't it?
Exactly, and I'm just like, I need to, I was speaking to my therapist, and we're going through more coaching than therapy now. It's more like trying to, coach through certain things, and how to feel, and how to, regulate goings on. And he was like, as long as you do it, there's no time pressure. Like some people might even prefer it in the evening. So it's like, but I almost have the tick boxes that I have to get done in the morning to not have it hanging over me. And that's why now I wake up, I eat, I stretch, which is a fucking new thing.
You stretch?
Well, because I've got the hips of a 70-year-old. Now I've got a physio who's like, stretch. I'm like, I've got a bit of accountability now. Instead of like, I'll do one day. Now I've actually stretched for 3 weeks straight.
Class.
Loosey-goosey with the hips now. But I wake up and I'll stretch, and then I'll do from 8 or 9 till 12. That's my first work block. And I'll get lead gen, I'll get check-ins, I'll get anything extra, I'll do everything, programming, whatever I need to do in that time. that work that is this week. I've literally started this week. It's been mega because I'm getting so much more done, and I feel like because then if I was to leave it, like, as I said, after to 11, I get back and I'm like, oh, I'm knackered from the gym, and I'm like, I have no motivation and no drive to do the not difficult but monotonous tasks that you have.
Oh
to
yeah,
do
100%.
lead gen.
Yeah.
You have to be in the right mindset to do lead gen. And when I first wake up, I'm in the right mindset. Whereas when it's like I've just got back from the gym and I've just had a bit of a shit session because like my shoulder or my hips have been playing up, my injuries. So I'm just like, I'm not doing anything today. And it's like, I'd rather get that done before having a shit session. And then when I get back, I'm like, at least I've done this.
Make it easy for your future self. Yeah,
exactly.
massively.
So I'm all about efficiency. Like my brain is extremely efficient, but it doesn't have, and I say this, like I tried to make, I made a big breakfast this morning. I made a bacon and egg bagel, and I made oats, and I was trying to make a coffee, and I was also trying to make my vitamin C tablet.
And you're feeding the dog and the cat.
And I was feeding the cat, well, and I was like making sure I was tread on the cat, right? I've got 4 things, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, right, I'll do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. By the time I've started number 1, but by the time I start number 1, I'm thinking I need to do number 2. I'm halfway through number 1, and I'm like
it's
this, and I'm
what,
suddenly
5
the
a.m. in the
coffee's
morning.
gone cold, the fucking bacon's burnt, and literally it's like a shit show. I'm like Gordon Ramsay in Hell's Kitchen like this, like. But it's like I know how to do it, but my brain and my memory and my attention doesn't allow me to I just very easily move around. And it's the same thing with like tasks in the business. Like I'm like, oh, I need to do this today,
And then you're thinking about something else.
and then I'm like, oh, I need to do that as well, and then I'll just go straight across, and I'm like, I need to remember that.
That's the thing, right? Because it's like the reason why, and I've been guilty of this as well, where you're not getting things done is because when you're working, you're either thinking of something else or you're not sure you're working. And when you're actually taking downtime, you're thinking about work. So you're not sure where you are. So it's kind of separate boundaries and also be like singular focus. I actually think we were at the Marbella Mastermind recently, it was a few weeks ago, and like one big take point was like the singular focus. Like I always find like I can't focus on too many things and trying to move too many things forward. And that's kind of like a skill set, because sometimes, down the line, I might be in a place where I can have a bit of harmony within, personal business. But right now, I feel like, and this is something because I've always done like this, whereas like you kind of go monk mode, a singular focus. So as soon as you have one area business, you're like, it's just about that. And then what happens when you start getting dragged, social occasions, these things, travel, it kind of like you have like one single focus.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's like, I don't really have like zaps in terms of productivity. If I want to get things done, it's because I know there's a singular focus. This is all I'm focusing on. You kind of go monk mode with it. So for right now, it's like photo shoot, business. So anything else, I'm not even thinking about, because like it's not taking any effort up here. So like, I think it's good to have that sprints where you'll actually, you kind of put in that sometimes at the back burner, and you can be singular focus. And I think it's probably the best thing I've probably realized, because I used to push it away thinking I have to have balance. But it's just like, I've been pushing against the tide when I'm chasing balance. I'm like, I'm not a balanced person. I'm just never, right now, I'm not going to say I'm never going to be. Right now, like, I don't have what it takes to be balanced, and I don't have the priority in balance. I'm going to have like a singular focus. So like, food is super simple, like, because I'm dieting, you don't eat anything anyways, do you? Coffee, you're like, same as always, this is what I'm going to do, minimalist. But then after that is actually in that place where you kind of make it easy for yourself, but if it's singular focus, it helps you massively. I do struggle with that balance in personal, relationship, social circle, but right now I know where I'm at is I want to make sure that, clients, business is thriving, and I've got that photo shoot goal. And then after that, I'm going to obviously swap and trade. But for me, my mind goes a million miles an hour if I have like all these things. Because I was saying to you on the way here, it's like traveling is like, I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. Keep me at my office, home, wherever I need to be, same environment. I'm a creature of habit. As soon as you get out of habit, it's like you lose focus and lose sight. So I've got obviously like the next travel is Bali, and that's it for the rest of the year, ideally. Who knows?
I'll see you. Like, I'm just kicking back. I'm like, where are you now?
Do you know what's funny?
I thought I'd go to South Africa. I'm like, why?
On the back of an elephant. Quick selfie.
Quick selfie, and I'm like...
No, it's... even on, like, travels, I'm like, wake up early, get your stuff done in the evenings. I don't really, like, travel for leisure. I don't think I have. Even Dubai, like, the last day, like, everyone's like, oh, have you been to this place? Have you been to that? Have you seen the Burj? I'm like, I've been here for 13 days, I'm not seeing the Burj yet. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, the last day I was like, right, get your shit together, be a person,
but that's my,
get stuff done.
That's my fear. Like, I have this fear with traveling, because or not a fear, and I'm like, not that not that I see it as pointless to me, right? But I know that I can't. I'm all focused or all not, so I can't be like, oh, I'm gonna travel.
Think of doing something else. Yeah.
So like people used to be like, oh, have you been to somewhere close? For example, like we're in Manchester, but like, oh, have you been to Liverpool? And it's like, yeah, Liverpool's just
Content.
Manchester.
Yeah, for real.
Like, but like when I'm at home and it's like, oh, we should go to here for the day, and I'm like, why? It's just like we're gonna.
Do you know what? I agree with that. Because I get exactly where you're coming from.
Because like for you, I would see you jetting about the globe, and I'm like, that stresses me out because that in my head I have to be in the right frame of mind to work, and if I'm away for 13 days, I'm on holiday. If I'm not in work
That's
mode,
fair.
I'm in fuck about mode. So it's like I don't have this. Oh, let me like it's like when I take my laptop when I go back to Surrey. If I go back to Surrey and see my mates or whatever, and see family, I'm like, yeah, I'll do some work, and I literally sit down, do a bit, and I get a text going to the pub. I'm like, yep, I'll see you there.
Fair.
Because I'm like I can't, and I have to have base operations, and I have to have something that I'm like, this is where I'm working. And that's why, again, like we were saying about the office space, might work for me, because when I go there, I can go there however much I need. If I have a big task to do, the rest of it I can do at home, and that might split it up.
Do you know one thing that helps me with like the office space is if you go into a coffee store, leave your phone, laptop in the car, and take a notepad with you. It works really good. Yeah. It's something I like to do on a Saturday mornings, and it's so good. Like, just can't leave everything in the car. Electronics, you literally can't, unless you're going to go off and get it. Even laptop included, because you know what it's like with your laptop, it's kind of like a bigger phone. So try that.
I am trying. I do want to. Well, I say I do want to. I've wanted to do lots of things, and I haven't fucking done even. I say that I want to do it, but getting out and just being somewhere else, getting out of my normal environment. Because even though I need that workspace, my brain tells me I can only work in this space. But then I feel like I'm not going anywhere. I'm trapped, and then I'm like in my office all day, and I'm like, oh, and I don't leave.
Fair.
When I go, if I don't go to the gym for the day, I don't leave the house.
You don't see people.
I don't see people, and then I'm just a cat.
100%. Yeah.
Obviously as well, but this I was going to say earlier on, like when it comes to balance.
Yeah.
Like I am extremely all or nothing when it comes to hyper focus. I'm either working and you can't get me out of the zone, or I'm almost like distracting. I'm trying to be distracting because I want to do something else, right? And before that's been in relationships that's not really worked, because when I'm completely in, it hasn't worked, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
Because I am, especially when I first started the business, it was like how it is when you first start. It's just completely.
It's
all
almost
gas, no brakes.
yeah.
And it's like
exactly
I'm getting
exactly that.
Because I'm so invested. Anything can trigger not that I've got anger problems, but I can get very heated very quickly if something doesn't something goes off. So that has had issues. Whereas now, like with Lacey, because she's in the same position, and she's in the same business. We're in the same house. She understands now that if I'm in work mode, it's not because I don't want to talk to her. It's because I'm working, which is down the line.
I'm going to chip into that. So when you said about the anger, it's like something I've always held on to. This has been always at the forefront of my mind. It's like you want to be high when your lows are low, and you want to be low when your highs are high. So you kind of in that place where you don't get carried with the highs or the lows. It's a very good place to be, because you know what it's like when you get a big excitement. It's a big dopamine rush, and then with that, the next day you're like tanked because you exhaust your dopamine. So I always find if you can be high when your lows are low, or highest at your lowest, but your lowest at your highest,
keep that wavelength.
So neutral. Neutrality is everything, because it's like, even though that's people say celebrate everything, but like I think it's good to have, but also you don't want to celebrate every minor achievement, and then it doesn't make a difference, right? So I always think like if you can kind of have like a neutral approach where actually things go wrong, we're neutral, things go well, we're neutral, it really helps you kind of like balance that a little bit more, because it's quite easy to be like, actually we've had a really good success and then kind of low success again. So you're volatile with the seasons, but if you can have neutrality, you just find actually your lows are higher. So it massively helps.
I was listening to another podcast about that, and they were saying that it's like your dopamine levels are like a wave tank or a wave pool, right? And the bigger the waves, right, the highs and the lows, okay? But when you get those highs, your
what comes
spills
afterwards,
out. It spills out because
right?
you're completely, and then afterwards, when it settles back down, your base level is lower than it was before because you've lost dopamine, right? And this is why when people go like partake in habits, alcohol, doing drugs, sex, whatever it might be, all these things that we connotate as bad, but it's in moderation and it's fine. But those people who are say for example addicted to coke or whatever else, they're chasing that high and then they drop off, and then when they get to normal, that's why they feel, and trust me, I've been there, that's why you feel like you're like everything's shit, like this is because your dopamine you've peaked, you've lost a load of dopamine because you've dropped down and now your base level is lower, and you have to build it back up because people are doing it every fucking week. You never ever build it back up. And I've got sorry to keep going, but I've got a mate who hopefully at some point I will do a podcast with him, because he's basically was one of my mates from home, and he was in that scenario, and now he's completely turned his life around. Hasn't drunk any alcohol for like 145 days, I think, but I don't know exactly. Since pretty much January, he's not done any narcotics or anything like that since then, and he is an absolutely new person. He's now running. He's healthy. He's eating the right things. It's an absolute turnaround, and I'm supporting him every step of the way because it's crazy to see how everyone's been in that place. And again, like I've been in that position. I've been in that position where you're constantly just trying to find the next dopamine hit.
The next high.
Yeah, and it's like when you can break out the cycle, it might be hard at the time, but when you break out and suddenly your dopamine levels are rising back up, you can get pleasure out of the little things instead of having to have the absolute extreme to feel anything. You almost desensitize yourself to the little things, and that's why the little things aren't actually good, and that's why you can't find the little wins are actually wins. You're like, I can always do better, which is again I've struggled with a lot, and it's sort of like everyone's like, you've done this, and it's like, yeah, but I haven't been here because it's
standards, right? It's like you choose what you celebrate.
Exactly.
It's I was listening to, because I'm always listening to different podcasts, kind of learn and absorb things in. There was a podcast on like the dopamine, exactly what we were speaking about, and it's like what stimulates dopamine the most. Quite funny. Chocolate to the top. So like food and indulgences tend to be at the top. So when you get like a bit of a spike with food, you have like a dopamine rush. So it's like a reward center, which is quite easy because we see like the average person is overweight because of that, because that's giving you like a reward factor. So it actually hits that part of your brain where actually this is rewarding, even if you think it's not. It's a rewarding facet in terms of your body, like how your body's taking it is like it hits the dopamine, it's a reward. We are wanting rewards. So it's kind of like food is the easiest one. Food actually comes at the top, which is quite crazy, and chocolate comes at number one. Not to demonize that. I think second is social media. Third is nicotine, so vapes, C-shot, etc. And then I think on top of that is like sex, for example. So it's quite interesting when you like your diet influences your headspace, and it's like you tend to find now if your diet is full of bad foods, you can't perform highly in terms of all parts of your life. Because I was like kind of speaking to one of our guys, I was listening back to a lot of kind of topics related to this, but when you diet and you get so focused, or when you're on top of food, you get so focused, so even you go for a meal out, you're still selective with the foods you have, because this is how I'm going to feel later on. So my future person is making it easier for Quinn in the morning or Irtaza in the morning. And it's quite interesting because then you kind of have a reaction, you don't get carried away with indulgences, food, alcohol, desserts, and you kind of have like a balance in terms of like health. You just tend to find you're in a better place, and you're also like you reset that dopamine hit. So I think it almost actually benefits you from a food perspective.
Well, it's something. Food and alcohol is something obviously with my clients is the biggest struggle. Trying to optimize the diet and also make sure that the weekends aren't an issue, because as a young guy, and this is going off like the reward. Dopamine and what people relate to reward. I've had such a long week. I'm just going to get cunted. I'm going to go down the boozer and just drown my sorrows. It's like, why in the UK especially, more than anything, we are ingrained and we are programmed that when we hit Friday, it's suddenly booze central. Like, why is that the case? And it's something that I'm fighting with my clients. Is like they're sound in the week, and then it's like, why on the weekends? Why just because the days start with an S? Why do you suddenly start boozing? Why do you drop off doing that? And this is, and it's something that I always say, like, I literally was speaking to a client this morning, and he's going out twice. He's doing like poker night, and then he's also got a friend's birthday. And I'm like, choose one and be sensible.
Right.
Okay, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm not going to say to anyone, say don't drink, don't do whatever, you know, because you can do what you want. I'm a coach. I'm not a fucking parent, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, is it going to do me good, or is it going to help or hinder? And if it's going to hinder, and if you've got a solid goal in mind, again, it's like, I'm going to help myself in the morning. I'm not going to have a hangover, so I can then train better. You know, it's not even like the hangover or the alcohol, the calories technically. Sometimes it's the next day you don't have the drive to prep your meals. You don't have the drive to actually, you know, do things. Or for us, we don't have the drive to, or the cognitive function to actually do the tasks we needed to push our business forward, to get ourselves ahead for the Monday, you know. So it's something that really, you know, and I drink. I'm not saying that I don't drink at all, but it's something that I'm really looking into, because every time I drink, I have negative thoughts, I have brain fog, I have all of this stuff. And like Kim was saying it on the webinar that I was on yesterday for ADHD, he was saying as soon as he drinks, even if it's a few drinks, it completely messes up your cognitive function for 2 to 3 days. And I'm like, I've genuinely, every single time I drink on a Saturday, it takes me till Wednesday before I'm actually back to fully functioning. I'm like, why am I wasting 3 days of progress and working at 100% when I'm only working at 60 or 50 or whatever it is, when I could be pushing? And say, it's the same with anyone. Why would you work hard for 4 days, Monday through Thursday, Friday comes around, you skip the gym because your mate's going down the pub, you go to the pub, and then suddenly Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're boozing, you're eating shit, and you've undone what you've done in the week, and then you've got 3 days of recovering where your body's absolutely gasping for air, and you're coming back round, and you're almost going backwards. You're not even staying where you are. You're not maintaining. That's why the people who do that, they go to the pub on the weekends. They slowly but surely slip away from, how have I managed to put a stone on? And it's like, because you're not maintaining. That's not maintaining. That's also not healthy lifestyle.
So I think probably to accent that as well, like, you know, have you heard of 5 human needs?
No.
So this is probably really interesting, and it changed everything for me, because it's when you understand that if you can meet your needs in a certain scenario, you can change and like kind of be malleable in that sense. So I think when people do certain things, it's because they see a benefit. Because think of it, you wouldn't do it if you didn't see a benefit.
Yeah.
Like someone drinks because they see the benefit: drinking, connection, socializing, belonging, confidence.
Yeah.
So like, you tend to realize if you're in a scenario and you're repeating a habit that you don't want to repeat, it's because it's meeting a need, and actually you actually see it as beneficial. So that could be binging in the evenings, probably provides you comfort and a stress release. Alcohol may actually take your mind off things.
Yeah.
So it's more like, if you understand the 5 human needs, which is certainty, uncertainty, significance / contribution, so you belong somewhere, growth, and variety in that sense. So when you realize actually maybe alcohol is helping you feel significant and belonging and part of a community.
Yeah.
Because let's say, for example, one of my good mates, Louis Calvert, he's quit drinking, which is really interesting. And the reason why he quit drinking is because he drank because when he was out, he felt like he was more significant and he belonged. So then he almost found actually drinking actually had it where he was kind of in a place where he can connect to people even more. And then when he's got a girlfriend, he's like, actually, don't need to drink that at all. Like, it's crazy because the need's already met anyways. So someone else maybe actually they feel like this may move them forward in terms of growth because they start to have like different thoughts and conversations they never had. So actually alcohol meets that need, or food meets that need, or, you know, this vice meets that need. So you kind of realize when you have those certain you meet those human needs in any area, you're kind of in a better place. So like, for example, if you're in a place of a relationship and you're not happy with the relationship, is because it's probably not meeting security. You don't feel secure. There's not enough growth. There's no novelty. There's no belonging or contribution or significance, or the 5th one, which I'm kind of forgot now. But it's like the 5 human needs. I think it's 6 actually, but because they call different things. There's like people call it different things. But when you realize actually there's a need that's being met, it's because it's actually meeting it. There's a thing you're doing that you don't want to do. It's because it's meeting a need. So if you're like, how can I meet the need the other way? You're in a better place. So for me, for example, like, I used to binge quite a lot on food. I was a fat kid. Like, I used to have like, I remember it's quite crazy. I was actually telling one of our clients about this on our photo shoot this weekend. And like, you know, when you hear people gain the weight back rapidly after diet, my first dieting phase, I had huge episodes of binging. It was nuts. It was quite bad, to be fair. I'll dive into this because I've never spoken about it. I think I did a dieting phase, and in 1 month, guess how much weight I gained back?
Oh, I'm going to say something like 12 kgs.
11. So like, that was like
it's a lot of weight.
a lot of weight.
How quickly as well?
in 30 days.
Flipping it.
Crazy.
That's-
So like that's a lot of weight, right?
Yeah.
And obviously I didn't know about the reverse, what happens the after,
Yeah.
you know, the before and after,
Yeah.
But what actually happened is I actually found like, even though I was doing that, I just found like I was period binging because I was seeking comfort and I was seeking like security. So like I actually realized that contributed towards it.
Yeah.
I also went through a life, part of my life where I was socializing and, you know, going out 3 to 4 times a week back in university because I was chasing connection because I didn't have that.
Yeah.
So you realize actually now you can meet the need differently. I'm not that, you know, going out. I don't binge at all. I have healthy habits because the need is met differently.
Yeah.
So you kind of realize how can I meet those needs in a different way? Then that's how you change habits.
Got
I find. So it's really interesting because when you want to change, when you feel like there's a disconnect in terms of what you want to do compared to what you're doing, because actually what you're doing is meeting a need and you need
Yeah.
to switch that around.
Ah.
It's a good way to understand it.
So maybe sort of if you have something, you know, that you don't want to do or you know's bad and you want to get out of it, but you don't understand why you keep going back to it.
It's pretty much that.
Actually,
Yeah.
it's reflection.
So-
reflection and saying,
Emotional eating, for example, has nothing to do with food. It happens to do with the emotions that you're feeling. How can you deal with them as opposed to
Yeah.
with food? So it's the exact way to understand it.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, and it's very easy for us coaches to tell someone
Be
who's
like, "Oh,
in
yeah.
that position, you know,
Do this."
don't eat that, you know. But it's something that, you know, when I was working with predominantly females, it was a bigger issue, you know, emotional eating. But
Yeah.
it's still something that comes up now, and I always say, think of the end goal, and the reason that people don't, you know, the reason that they don't stop themselves from emotional eating or allow the emotions to overcome them is because they don't have a clear enough goal. And it's like, if it's all over the shop and you're like, oh, this one won't hurt, and then suddenly that one turns into whatever, a whole binge sesh or whatever, you know, and it just undoes a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
all the time.
I think also like some people don't feel like they deserve it in a sense. They deserve the success that comes with it. So I think what you mentioned is obviously remembering your goal, having that vision, but also kind of the belief in like knowing you will get there and you can get there.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's like, and I think this was like a big breakthrough for me, kind of realized over the years where actually if you want to set a goal, you need to believe you're actually capable of achieving the goal. Because if you want to run a 4-minute mile, but you don't believe you can run a 4-minute mile, you're not going to run a 4-minute mile.
No.
If you want to get a 6-pack abs or get into a physique, and you don't believe it, you're not gonna at all.
Yeah.
And I think yes, you'll build up more belief, you know, by doing it more and obviously going through the experience. And I think it's one of those things you have to believe you actually can as well, which is quite an easy saying, but you have to, you know, people don't think they deserve it in a sense, or they don't feel like they actually can live up to it, which is why they don't get there. One thing I wanted to kind of dive into, which is quite interesting, because some people think, and I think this relates to the emotional eating and also body transformations, and it's like sometimes, you know, when someone says, I've not got what it takes, and sometimes that's actually true. Other people be like, oh no, you're enough, you've got what it takes. But sometimes what's required is less than your skills. So your capabilities are here, and what's required to get to that goal is here. So people would drop it down over here, but actually what they need to do is upskill. So they can get the skills to what's required. Because
Yeah.
initially when you start something, your skills will be lacking compared to what's required, but that doesn't mean you won't develop those skills.
Exactly.
Whereby actually what other people would do is drop what's required and just drop their goal, but actually realise that's growth right over here.
Exactly.
That's just bringing your standards down, bringing your goals down.
And if you're talking about
You can relate to
fitness,
anything.
or say
Yeah.
4-minute mile, right? If you can only run a 7-minute mile right now, and you're like, I'm never going to hit a 4-minute mile because your capabilities are at 7,
Yeah.
and you think that's where you're going to stop. If you put in the work, do you really think that marathon runners were born and they can run a 2-hour marathon?
100%.
You know, if you're at 7 and you put the work in, if you believe you can get to 4, you'll get to 4.
Yeah.
If you believe you can only do 7, you'll stay at 7. And this is what I say to people: like, when you get to the end of a fat loss phase or a dieting phase or whatever, I'm like, what do you want to do now? I ask people, what do you want to do? Because it's completely up to them, and they're like, oh, I want to do this, and now their goals are completely different, you know. And our long-term saying from Mr. Johnny Wilkinson is, life is just, I've managed to sneak it in. Life is just a series of false summits. And it's just, you get to that one point and you're like, you know, I've got there. I thought I'd, you know, and I'm very much the same, you know, with business and with personal. And I got the car and I'm like, oh, cool. Now what? And now I'm like, I've got the car that I wanted, the exact car that I wanted. Why do I want an RS3?
Oh yeah,
And it's like, you know, it's like, I just want it faster or quicker, or, you know. And it's like, when you get to that point and you're like, oh, I've made it, you know. And then it's like, oh, there's more to do. And that's why I say to people, when they get to the end of the program and you've got to where you want to be, we got to your goal, right? you have to keep going because there's more stuff to do and you don't know how far you can take it. Whereas when people go, yeah, I'm all good, thanks for that, and then 3 months down the line they're back to
it's quite. You have those conversations where, like, trust me, I've been there. You're gonna go back to where you were. They're like, oh, I'll be okay. Like, and then what happens is they go and then they come back. You're like, you're right. So it's more from an angle of. Hello. So you're a post.
Yeah.
You're looking for 5 people. I'm 2 now. So it is quite interesting because obviously it depends what you want to accept in terms of standards with your body, but like I do think when it comes to like transformations in general, body as well in particular, you're almost looking at actually kind of what got you here will be different to what gets you to the next level. And it's never like got here, pause there, because when you just pause there, you're like, I'm just focusing on the before and after. What about the before and after?
Yeah.
Because when you get to that goal, and I've had loads of conversation, I've seen loads of people do it. They get there, and all they know is what's familiar here, because what they're doing is like a temporary little plaster. So all they knew is overeating, indulgences, previous habits. So they go back to what's familiar, and then all of a sudden close back down.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people do it, where it's they start transformation program, they start something, start change. They kind of have like a all or nothing approach, or actually like a place where actually what they're seeing is doing as temporary. Then what happens is all they know is the previous habits, the previous life they live. So they go back to what's familiar because it's easy and it's minimal guesswork.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's and it's just that's why you see people. You know, some people are always they're in decent shape through the summer, or
It's like
half decent shape, and then they're through the winter. You're like, who is this person?
Like a renter body approach.
Yeah.
Right? I've rented that body for the summer.
Exactly.
And then,
Yeah. I've paid this money for a coach, which is hard work. Why would you not maintain it so the next year you don't have to spend the same amount of money? Like I remember you saying that you used to work with some coaches and it was almost the same people were coming back year on year on year just to get in good shape.
conveyor belt.
Yeah, exactly. They're just coming in, and that's not how we want to coach. We want to actually change people's lives and change how people live, and that's why the longer you work with a coach, the better it will be because it's not a 3-month in and out, and that's why I don't really offer like a quick fix. I did a summer shred recently, but that's for people who are already in decent nick, they just want to get even better and they just want a bit of
Get to go
accountability.
right. Yeah.
I wouldn't offer that to someone if they need to change their life. If it's someone who's in decent shape and they're like, right, let's just.
Do you know what I love to speak about? You were underweight, right?
Me?
Yeah.
I was underweight.
Well, you went through a place where you built a lot more muscle.
Yeah, I was. I've never been overweight.
But were you underweight or were you skinny?
I mean, not underweight. I was.
But
never
like
underweight.
you were kind of. I remember because I saw your before and after in terms of your own journey.
Yeah, I wasn't
before?
built when I was younger. I was quite athletic. So I went to. Obviously after infant school, I was lucky enough to go to a private school for 4 years.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. Here we go.
Here we go.
And so I went to private school for 4 years. So you play sport every single day. You're very much pushed to play high level sport. So I developed a lot, and during that time, that's sort of year 3 to year 6, I was there. Yeah. So that's real development of the body, really, muscular wise. So I was playing sports every single day compared to, maybe kids who were going to a state primary school where they were doing sport twice a week, once a week, and if they wanted to play football, they'd play football after school. So I had a good head start when it came to that. So I was never overweight, and I had a decent amount. I'm not saying I was muscular when I was younger, but at the same time, I played a lot of sports, so I had a good base to build off. And then when I went to secondary school, I went back to not playing that much sports, so I had to find the sport playing football and stuff like that. And then got to college, and I was called Fat Boy, even though I was never, because I just ate loads of food.
Interesting.
So I was very, very much, that was ingrained into me that I was this fat boy. And I remember to this day, you might have seen a transformation. I used it when I was really young, big hair, in a vest in the mirror, right? I did it the other day. I used it a transformation. I put, and this is back in 2000 and, I don't even know, 15, 16, something like that, probably 15, maybe even earlier. But I put the tag in quotations, fat boy. And I was looking decent in year, 10 or something like that, because I'd started going to the gym and started using that as a fuel to go to the gym and get in good shape, because people used to call me fat boy because I would eat and do whatever, So I was not overweight, but I used to eat for 2 people, and then everyone's like, oh, fat boy. Yeah, I still get it now as a joke, you know. And now, obviously, it just goes in when I don't care because I know I'm not, you know. Whereas back then, it used to real get to me. My mates used to be like, oh, this side. Used to be like, oh, I'm gonna fucking go and get wham then. I'm gonna go get wham, and then
proven wrong.
Yeah, and I remember to this day, I put the tag in quotations, fat boy, because that's what fueled that, you know, change in lifestyle. I'm not saying that it was. That was just by going to the gym, you know, beginner gains, and then that started the, you know, snowball effect to where we are now.
Interesting.
So,
nice.
There you go.
That's
a bit of
cool.
an insight into
I didn't know that.
Started. Yeah. So I've been speaking a lot with my therapist about school times, and, you know, like, because you have a lot of things that we think about now, and the way that we see the world and the way that we think of ourselves is through
the lens in terms of
through what we've gone through in our past. And I'm not saying that I've had trauma, I'm not saying anything like that, which some people do, and that obviously that really affects them. But, you know, when you're at school, and those friendships and relationships and the way you're treated by your friends and all this sort of stuff really has an impact on how you think of yourself. And I feel as though, and it, like, again, this is nothing, my mates, I love my mates to death, but I was almost the butt of the jokes a lot of the time during school, and I always was, and even past that. And, you know, now I don't give a shit, but back then it used to get to me, you know, but I never used to show it. I used to sort of, you know, just internalize it, you know. But then it got to the point where I was always, you know, thinking that it was true, what they were saying, you know, fat boy, I would, like, fuck off, Quinn, all this sort of stuff, right? Which is a jokey thing, banter, you know, it's funny.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm sitting there going, why do I think that I'm not worthy of all the things that I have and all this sort of stuff? It's because I've been brought up with the people around me, not my family really. I mean, my dad was very pushy in terms of you need to work hard, do well in school and all this sort of stuff. But with friends and stuff, it was very much, you know, always about the jokes at the end of the day, and that's and I didn't mind it, and I internalized it. And now it's like, why do I always feel like I'm not enough, and why do I always feel like as soon as someone starts talking to me, I get defensive because that's all I know, you know. And these things I'm speaking with my therapist, but the only reason I'm now, you know, opening up my mind a little bit about it is because I have a therapist and I've got someone to speak to, and they can actually bounce stuff. Whereas when you don't think about, when you don't, you know, you almost want to put it behind you and you don't think that it makes a difference, but it really, really does. And when you start 100%. To go back and pick apart stuff that has happened, and you think, oh, maybe that is, you know, maybe that has had a bigger impact than I thought, you know. And because I've had a therapist for over a year now, and only till recently did I speak to him about school.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's extremely, he was like, there was like 2 sessions back to back where he was like, I've learned more about you in these 2 sessions and figured things out than I have done over the last however long, you know. Because when you start to, and that's why over a long period of time, if you work with someone like a therapist or a coach, it always gets better because they know you more, you know.
100%.
And with therapy, it's something that I've figured you don't always get what you think you're going to get out of it every session. You don't go in there and go, right, I'm going to come out a new person. It takes a long time, and then you start to sort of, you know, it's like a journey, and then you get to a point where you're like, right, this is actually an issue. Why is this happening? Go back to this, or like something will just randomly come up that I haven't thought about to talk about it, and then suddenly we have a conversation about it and things become clearer. And it's like going back through certain, you know, parts of my life where I was really struggling, and it's like, why was I struggling there? Oh, because, you know, I felt like I didn't have people around me because I was being, you know, pushed to be this person, to be this academic that I was just not at all. And again, like I don't want to be this person who thinks that they've got something and they haven't, but I have very high tendencies of ADHD, and I said to my mum, she went, oh yeah, it makes sense. And I'm like, oh, shit,
see, like,
you know? So it's like, and I'm sitting here now, like, not thinking I definitely have it, but at the same time, like, all of the traits that they have, not being able to sit still in school, not being able to work well in exams, but then very creative when it comes to coursework, it's me to a T. And I'm like, that's almost why I'm hyper focused sometimes, and then away with the fairies other times. And I have to harness that the times that I am focused.
So I guess you can see that's powerful, by the way. That's class. And you can see ADHD, like you mentioned, this really helps me with it. I'm not tested. I'm not going to think I am. I think I'm not. It's like, what it is. It is what it is. Like, this is, you know, I'm not going to change it. So there's 2 ways you can view ADHD and be like, one can be like, fuck, like, I'm fucked. I can't do anything about it. option two, you can actually realize I've got a few friends of mine that are like successful business owners and clients. And what's interesting with ADHD is you're always looking forward to the next biggest thing.
Yeah.
So you're always trying to grow.
Yeah,
so you never get complacent.
Yeah.
So that's a superpower, you could say, with ADHD.
And that's sorry to butt in, but that's going back to dopamine. And it's a lack of dopamine, and they're always trying to get the next big thing because they're trying to get that dopamine hit. And that's why you can never find, like pleasure in what you have, because you lack dopamine and also a little bit of serotonin as well, which is the the hormone where it's like it's to do with what you've got, loving what you've got, but dopamine, as I said, they was on that on the TMP mastermind sort of thing, they were saying about how ADHD is because you have a lack of dopamine or norepinephrine, which is adrenaline in the brain.
I'll give you a fun fact in a sec. Yeah,
but it's to do with like as you're saying, like I'm constantly, if I get a milestone, and this is crazy because, and I'll go for a bit of business and numbers. I hit my first month. I did like 7K because I was just grinding. Right, I hit like 6.5K. I was like, fucking hell, that's now the norm to me.
Something you're measuring.
And then suddenly I hit a 4K month, which is way more than I had ever got before, more than most people will earn in a month, and that's a loss because it's 3.5 below what I'd got, 2.5 below what I've got, and that's how my brain works. And it's very hard for me to distinguish a win from a loss because it's obviously never going to be a constant upwards, progression, which is tough for my brain to compute. But I understand now a little bit more that I can, it pays all my bills, it does all this, even if I have a lower month, You
need to map.
And because it was all over the place, I was like, I don't know if I'm winning or losing. I don't know whether I'm coming or going because it was so all over the place. Whereas now it's stabilised a little bit more and we're slowly progressing and, everything's moving. I'm in a much better position for that. But it's like if I say I go to the gym, right, and I hit 5 ring muscle ups in one session. The next session I can't get one because X, Y, Z, right? I didn't eat correctly. My shoulders are fucking killing me. I've fallen out, right? I feel like I've failed. Or if I get one, I've still done one. I'm like it's very much glass half empty with me instead of glass half full, which comes to the amount of dopamine and trying to always, that didn't quite give me enough. I need to push for more now. I need the next thing. And like definitely when I first started, because I was going for pay in fulls. I don't know what it was. I used to get an absolute fucking dopamine adrenaline rush when someone wanted to pay in full, because big chunk of money, and I've gone from working hard PTing and not really struggling PTing to then cool, I'll pay for 3 months up front, and it's like, oh, that's a chunk of money, so I'm like, yeah, cool, pay in full, and it was good because it then allowed me to reinvest into the business early, which got me further quicker. And then when I had a low month because I didn't have recurring, it was a low month, and that's why I had this complete fucking
drop
other end of this, going from a high to then, oh my god, I'm
speaking about that,
and that's what you're saying about how now it's stabilized. I'm in a much better position.
Security.
Yeah, exactly.
Human needs, right?
Therapist.
Absolutely. It is security though. You make better decisions when you're secure compared to when you're in a place where you're chasing that from scarcity and a lack of abundance. So it's like you just think differently. I remember Ben Mark, who's a really, really good friend of mine, and he's also a photographer, and then Ben Mark. I remember him telling me, like, because he's always giving me a piece of life advice and a lot of golden nuggets. Someone he knew that was in that place where they always recommended save 6 months, and then you almost see like, actually, even if nothing happens over these next 6 months, you're secure, you're safe, and your decision making is completely different. You're like, how can I grow? And you can be a visionary rather than chase some scarcity, play from vision. Then what happens is that the person that gave the piece of advice was like the happiest man alive. And Ben was like, how about you? How much do you have saved? He's like, 10 years. It's like, right, this person literally the happiest. You'll never see him down. He's always giving. He's always chasing. He's always growing because he's got a security. So that just kind of shows how security is actually a priority. Security in terms of like business, finances, lifestyle, consistency, the whole thing. And then obviously from there you make different decision making. So it's like, coming back to what you said earlier, it's like you can kind of get carried with the highs and the lows. I know what that means. I know because I've I've experienced it, we experienced it with conversations about it as well.
Yeah.
But like having in a place where you're secure, your needs are met. It's
Yeah.
like, this is all a surplus now. So it's...
Yeah, that's a very, that's what I'm, like, I've never been
That doesn't
in a
mean you won't
position-
chase more though. You'll always chase
of
more
course,
because
but
it's
it's
powerful
like,
when you
I've
have
always
more.
been in a position where I've been in, like, when I was a student overdraft, like, but I was, and this is where, you know, it's very, all over the place sort of. So I am in a position where my family my dad is well off and he's always helped me out when I've needed it. And then when I was growing up living in my mum's, it was not to the point where we didn't have money, but it was, you know, things are tight, etc., etc. So I was sort of living in this complete opposite thing where I was at my mum's and seeing like, oh, we can't afford that, we can't do that, and then but my dad would always bail me out. So I got myself into this mindset of fuck it, whatever. And it's almost like I'm like, no, I can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. And then as soon as the floodgates open, I'm like, oh fuck it, I'll be bailed out. And then it's like, it's like as soon as it bursts, it's complete, and it's and it screws me over because I'm in scarcity mode, and then something will happen. I'm like, fuck it, and then I'll deal with it later. And it's like, oh for fuck's sake, I've just screwed myself over even more. Whereas now, but that's because I didn't see it. I didn't see a path when I was just PTing, and I'm going to go into another podcast into a little bit deeper, but of what I was doing while PTing, which was causing me grief. But it was sort of like even though I didn't know where the money was coming from, I would still spend like I did. Whereas now I am not spending anywhere near as much, and I'm doing way better.
Yeah. And
I'm slowly but surely feeling that security, and then I can make more controlled decisions instead of having to feel like I'm like in that scarcity, like, oh, I don't have much money. I'm going to then get that dopamine hit by you know, alcohol, drugs, whatever it might be, you know. And I was living that for a long time, and now I'm out of that. You know, drinking is on and off, but you know, it's something that I dealt with a lot, and it's now I'm in a position where I'm more secure, money wise, you know, relationship wise, everything's secure. So I'm able to, you know, sit and actually, I never went through my finances. I put my head in the sand. Because I was like, I'm just going to keep spending until it fucking tells me I'm in my overdraft, and then I'm going to keep going until it basically blocks my card. And then I would just deal with it afterwards. Whereas now I'm actually looking through my finances, making sure, you know, I know when things are coming out, and I'm not surprised, you know?
Yeah.
So you've just got to make sure that you sit down and figure things out. And this is my thing to people. If you feel out of control with your finances, it's because you don't look at them. And I know you don't want to look at them and I never wanted to look at them because you know it's going to be worse than you think it is. You think, oh, I've probably got about 100 quid in my account. It's like minus 255, and you're like, what the fucking hell's happened here? But you forget about all the little bits of like. And I was in that mindset, and when you're in that mindset and that position for a long period of time, it really ingrains into your brain that you never have money, you can never do well with finances. But it's just because you're having these self-destructive behaviors, and then you're basically self-medicating by spending more money to get your mind away from the fact that you are not doing well enough in your career or whatever it might be, and you're not getting paid enough, but then you're spending half your wage to get out of that position. So it's breaking out the cycle of the alcohol, the drugs, whatever it might be. When you do that, you'll have more money, you'll have more free time, and you'll have more control over your own mind, over your own body, and your own life. And that is crucial to actually living a long, healthy lifestyle.
I've got a story in this, and probably I've already told you. You know, have I told you that story about John Rockefeller?
No.
So Charlie Johnson actually told me this. We were training legs, mid-set, split squats. I was like catching my breath. He was like, I've got a story for you, mate. Because we were speaking about this stuff between legs, as team men tend to do.
Yeah, of course.
So like, there's a story about John Rockefeller. So like, there's two parts to the actual story. There's a man that's had a failed business, his life's going to shit, he's in debt, and he's, you know, in a place of scarcity. There's a guy that comes in, he comes to him, he's like, hey, my name's John Rockefeller, and here's a $5 million check. And the guy with the problem's like, fuck, this has solved everything, is a check. And then what happens is 12 to 24 months later, I think it's 12, it's actually a real story, which is crazy. It's 12 months later, that guy that had all those problems, all of a sudden his business went into positive. He was crushing it, he made millions. From a relationship standpoint, he was in a place where he was, you know, he had no one. He actually got a wife, etc., girlfriend, and he's kind of that place of abundance. He actually met all of his life's vision, but the check was still there, so he didn't cash it in. All he needed was like the security. And then a year later, he went to cash it at the bank, and then like, that's an invalid check.
Yes, yeah.
So
I knew
then,
that.
what was interesting is that guy was saying who's John Rockefeller was actually a guy that escaped from a mental asylum.
Really?
Crazy, right?
That's sick.
So like all he needed was certainty,
Yeah.
that confidence to actually do those things. Where actually what he didn't need was a resource. He needs to become resourceful and do what he did because he didn't cash it in.
Yeah, that's
So you kind of need to do with what you've got. So I think sometimes you kind of don't realize what you've got until you really push your body and your mind. So that's kind of that. I just need that confidence and be like, actually,
That's
fuck
real,
it.
and that's the thing when like people think, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I don't have the resources for that. If you need to find the resources for something, you'll do it. If the doctor said you've got fucking 6 months to live, change your life, you'll do it in a heartbeat. But because you don't want to, because you want to live this life of comfort, because you want to live the life of, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it whenever, you are never going to be successful, you're never going to have a long life, and you might get to 60 and suddenly your heart goes, see ya.
Have you know about fight and flight, right?
Yeah.
Like parasympathetic, sympathetic. So for someone that doesn't, sympathetic is the one where you're in a place where sympathetic is the rest and digest, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So fight or flight is the parasympathetic where you're in attack mode.
Yeah.
So think of a Netflix and chill, big training session, that kind of thing. So what's interesting with the fight and flight, that's like a Costco of all the feelings you can experience. There's loads more to it. There's one that's really stands out. It's a tend and befriend. So when you're in a fight or flight stance, that's a big category. That's like a Costco, and you've got all these things that go into that. There's one that stands out, which is quite popular, and not many people know of or look into. The tend and befriend, which is actually, even though it's a bad situation, you can tend to tend and befriend it. So that even though you're not in a good place, you tend to kind of find it, it becomes familiar, and you tend to tend it, and it kind of goes away from that. So it's really interesting because sometimes even though you might be in a bad place, you get comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's a tend and befriend. Even though you're in fight or flight, things are against you, finances, body, business, relationships, you're in that place where it's like, shit, there's not a chilled out position to be. You're in a fight or flight state. You might actually go into a place where it's more of a tend and befriend. So you actually might be familiar with it and be like, all right, we're going to be uncomfortably comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's a feeling itself. So like, it's really interesting to look into like the fight or flight because it's like a big Costco of all the feelings you experience. So
yeah, that does make sense, and it's we don't have much time because she's outside. But
should we give her a shout out?
Shout out the sound lady who helps out. But like, yeah, if I need, like, for myself, if I need to make money, or I'm like, right, I'm down this month, that sometimes will drive me to make more money, and I'll do the things I need to do. If I'm not in the right mindset, I'll just sit there and mope. And it's like, what differentiates my drive to moping around? Like, some people can be 100 all gas no brakes 100% of the time, and that's fair play. I sometimes have times where I'm like, I can't work, but then if that is paired with the fact that I'm having a shit month, I'm in big trouble. And my mindset is like, oh, I'm completely out of it, Whereas sometimes I'm like, right, I've had a shit month, and it really depends on my mind. And I don't know, this is something I'm working on with my coaches to try and figure out what drives me, what doesn't drive me, what takes me out of it. And the first thing I need to do is look at alcohol. Again, like I said, completely drains me of everything that I want to do a few days afterwards, and I'm like, why do I feel shit? And then I'm like, because I had a few drinks on the weekend that I didn't need to have, and I'm not saying anyone needs to drink, and it's, I'm trying to get to the point where I don't need to drink at all, I think, because again, I'm trying to just slowly wean my way off of drinking on the weekends, because again, I grew up in a place where that was, the norm. You go down to the pub, shout out the Hungry Horse. You go down to the pub. You go down to the pub on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, every single week, and then you're like, "Why have I got no money? Why can I not save? Why can I not do this?" Because it's just it's just what you do. And we'll end it on this, or unless you want to say something else. But this is something that stuck with me. And if Geordie Ranger's watching this, Brett Wickens said this to me. This is the biggest nugget of knowledge that I've ever used. So I moved away to Worcester to go to university, right? And I used to work with this guy called Brett, and he said to me, and I was thinking, I might go to uni, but I might stay and hang out with my mates. And he said, go. And I said, why? What makes you say that? And he said, because you can go anywhere at any time, and you can come back to the same place, and the same people will be drinking in the same pub on the same day. And I was like, that's pretty true. And I moved to Worcester, stayed in Worcester, And every time I go back, the same people are drinking in the same pub at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, that stuck with me. And it's like, that broke me out of that cycle. I thought, I'm going to go to uni and I'm going to do what I need to do there. And then I stayed in Worcester because I had friends and, things in Worcester that I was doing. And then now moved even further away from home and friends because I know no one's going anywhere. I don't have parents who are, getting too old. My dad's a bit old, but, it's not like I'm getting to the point where I need to be close to family and friends. I'm trying to build my own life and away from everyone. Not away from everyone, that sounds stupid, but away from the habits and the routines that my naturally go back to when I go home.
Yeah.
So it's something that I took from that is
that's quite powerful.
The same, your environment decides what you do. If you live in a village where everyone goes to the pub, you're going to go to the pub because no one does anything else. If you move away from that and start hanging out with people who are actually doing what you want to do, you will do that the same thing. And that's, as soon as I joined the mentorship, I was like,
class.
That's
class.
my goals are now much bigger. Before it was just a PT and go around
100%.
MILFs houses
Yeah.
in Wentworth, in Surrey. Now it's, I want to build a business to this much so I can take a step back and I can do this, and it's just the change. And I'm not saying nothing against my mates and nothing against people who want to go to the pub. If you want to live a simple life and go to the pub, albeit, do what you need to do. But at the same time, I was just doing the same thing and I was like, there's surely more to life. Like, how is that geezer driving that car? Like, has he done it through this, that? And I'm like thinking, how have I got this car and how can I I can't save any money because I'm just doing the same, I'm just a money pit for the pub. And as soon as I stopped going to the pub, that's when everything changed. And as soon as I moved away from, those habits and the people that were doing the same thing, everything changed.
Powerful. Yeah.
And it's very difficult. And I see my mates at home who want to change what they're doing, but because they're not stuck where they are, but they're like they want to stay in the same place. It's so difficult to make it out if you're still there.
100%. 100%.
And it's
and
it's
like a leash, right?
I say to people, I say to my mates at home, like, why are you doing it to yourself? Why don't you move away? For a couple of years, the same people are going to be in the same place. You're not going to miss anything. You're not going to miss. It's a fear of missing out. It's like, but they're down the pub and
they're still going to be here in 5 years' time, right? It's literally that. It's leashes and having you've got a stud in the ground. So it's like the story of the baby elephant. You leash it down. How you see have you heard the story about it? So when you see these the larger elephants getting thrown around with a rope.
Yeah.
The story behind that actually starts when they're a kid. So they have it where the rope is obviously attached to them. It's super hard. They can't break out of it. So the first few years within the kid's life, trying to break away from the rope. So then at some point he's like, it's not going to happen. I've been trying for years. I'm not going to try. So then that same rope stays on, but when it's huge, it still doesn't try. But we know that elephant can absolutely just break free right away. But it doesn't try because it's got this leash.
Yeah.
So it's having that leash to hold you down. You stood it down into the ground, and you feel like it's. I've tried and can't do it, so you don't try again.
For sure. I started reading I think ages ago, James Smith's book. I think the first chapter is about environment, and if you've lived in the same place doing the same things, how do you know that is your environment that you're going to thrive in? How do you know that that's the life that you want to live if you've only lived that one life? You need to go out and you need to experience things. You need to do things. You need to try things that aren't going to work and figure out what's happening. You don't have to do it by 20. You can do it by 30, 40, even 50.
100%.
But at the same time, you need to make sure that you try different things. Otherwise, you never know what is for you. And I'm not experienced in that, but I've lived in 3 different places. Whereas some people that I know have lived in one place, or they're still at their parents' house, or they're living down the road from the parents, whatever it might be, and they haven't experienced anything new, so they don't know if they're doing well, but they could do better if they moved, if that is their environment. Yeah.
Let's leave it on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're getting
Let's leave it on that. She's probably outside. Pleasure to have you on board, and we'll definitely get around to very soon.
For sure.
So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, and we got a bit deeper than I thought.
Thank you all for listening. Appreciate it.
Watch out for the QPT Pod, solo pod. I'll be doing a podcast on my own at some point. It might be in a year's time. I don't know.
He's doing it. I'm holding him to it. Next 30 days. 30 days.
I'll buy a mic and all the stuff today. How about that?
Done.
Perfect.
Official. Excellent. Thank you for coming on, and look forward to the next time.
That was decent.